Welcome to it. It is the AFHQ Transfer Window review. Lots of drama, lots of tension. Arguably one of the best transfer windows we've had in a long time. Here with me to break it down is, of course, one of our faves, Ed Dove. Just to take a look at this entire window. What has happened? What did we miss? Where did some of our favorite African players go? That's all the questions we'll be answering right here on the show. My name is Mitch Makena, and listen, strap yourselves in because we're about to dive into one of the most incredible transfer windows yet. Ed, first and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I've caught up on sleep after staying up pretty late for the end of the window for deadline day. My heart rate is just coming down. The adrenaline's fading away because it was pretty exciting, those final hours and minutes of the window.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I think let's dive into deadline day because there was just so much going on. I couldn't put my phone down. I was waiting for notifications here and there, refreshing my Twitter timeline every single time. I think one transfer that definitely caught my eye was the Seoul to Chelsea transfer, which I didn't think was going to happen. There was moments where a lot of conversations between Chelsea and Atletico was happening, and people were just not sure about the deal, but it managed to come through on deadline day.
Yeah, you always have this, don't you? When the final minutes are ticking down, when the deadline's passed, there's always that question, will this one go over the line? Will we see, did they get the paperwork done in time? In the past, we've seen deals that we thought were going to make it, we thought they were going to sneak in, and ultimately they didn't. But it sounds like Seoul has got over the line, and that's a really big boost for Chelsea because another really talented midfield option to join their cabal of pretty excellent midfielders already, to be honest.
And I know, that the caliber that's joining Chelsea, I mean, it's just increasing, just making the team a whole lot better. I think for Thomas Tuchel, this is definitely a welcome headache for him. Also moving across to, La Liga, because Atletico was also part of another deal with Antoine Griezmann returning back to the Wanda Metropolitana. Look, with Barcelona, the conversation has been going around in terms of the finances, what happened with Lionel Messi, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But did you see the Griezmann deal coming through, or did it just also for you come out of nowhere?
Came out of nowhere. I mean, there's often one that kind of you just, no one's even really talking about it. Then deadline day arrives. All of a sudden, there are murmurs, there are mutterings. Yeah. And before you know it, they've signed on a dotted line. And I think Griezmann was definitely the transfer for that this window. Really big, a massive deal for Atletico Madrid. I mean, he knows the club. He's a proven superstar there. The fans are going to be delighted to see him back, but it's a real blow for Barcelona. I mean, as you mentioned, they've already lost Lionel Messi. Now they're losing Griezmann on deadline day without an opportunity to replace him. And are the likes of Depay and Luke de Jong and Braithwaite, are they really going to fire you to the Spanish title? I am not convinced.
No, it's quite tricky out there in Barcelona right now. I think also some amazing news coming up. Ansu Fati getting that number 10 jersey of Lionel Messi's, which was also previously held by Ronaldinho. So it's quite a heavy shirt that he'll be wearing. But what are some of the transfers that you saw, yesterday on deadline day that also caught your eye?
Well, we've got to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, this one was kind of talked about all week. It's obviously it was expected. There would have been a shock if it hadn't gone through, but still to actually see him in that new United kit, for it to be official, for the club, that and formal unveiling, there is something pretty special about that. And I think this is, like him or loathe him, Ronaldo obviously splits opinion, but everyone's got to admit there's something pretty special about him returning to the Premier League, returning to United, having achieved so much in the interim. And the big question now is whether United can capitalise on having such an experienced superstar in their ranks and actually push for major honours this season. But that is as far as deadline day deals go, that's going to be the biggest of all time, surely.
And I think when you look at his numbers, I think that's what we live in nowadays. When you look at his game by numbers, you're looking at, he was the past 2 seasons in Serie A, he was up there with the top goal scorers, with the other guy at Stamford Bridge, Lukaku, competing with him. And I think just the effect on this Manchester United team rather, is going to be just so incredible. I can't even comprehend what a caliber the player he is and what that would bring to the club. Do you think he's that perfect fit? Do you think he's that missing piece to perhaps get them a little bit closer to their city rivals and, of course, just brush aside Liverpool?
I'm starting to believe now because City haven't been entirely convincing so far this season. Obviously, they bought Grealish, but they still lost their opener against Tottenham Hotspur. They didn't eventually sign that centre forward. So I wonder, and I think there are still real problems at left back for City as well. So you just wonder whether there's a certain vulnerability there and where the United could capitalise. I don't think Ronaldo's not going to be the same player he was when he left United, but I think he will bring something that's really been lacking. It's going to be that nous, that know-how, that ability to get things over the line, to get 3 points, and to go on to the next challenge. In terms of United and title challenge, I think they've got to be aiming for that now. And I think it won't just be Ronaldo. I think it'll be Rafael Varane, the centre-back they signed earlier in the window, who's going to be a massive acquisition as they look to push for the Premier League title.
Do you know what crazy? Speaking of Varane, before we jumped onto this live, I came across a video just before kickoff this past weekend. It was just went viral. He was chatting to our Aaron Wan-Bissaka and also just showing him positioning. And you can see Bissaka absorbing everything that Champions League / World Cup winner Varane was telling him, and also the movements as well. And then, I mean, when you look at what Wan-Bissaka did with that goal-saving stop in that game as well, you can just see, the experiences and the caliber of these type of players walking into a big club like Manchester United. And I have to say that Rafa Varane one,
both of them are winners. They're absolute winners.
Exactly.
Winners in your right. Yeah. Like you say, they've won the World Cup. They've won the European Championship.
Exactly.
Multiple leagues. That is going to make a massive difference to your squad.
I think let's also go over to seeing that we're here today, rivals Manchester City. As you know, Jack Grealish stepping in there. A lot of people talking about the price tag that Manchester City got, but he's been, over the past 3 games, proving his worth by getting a goal and assist. You see him time and time again on the eye test. He looks so good in that Manchester City team. He's fitted so well. What kind of impact will he have in the sky blue jersey?
I think, as you say, we're already starting to see it. We're starting to see how he can open up defences, how he can that spark of creativity that can really make a difference in the tight games as well. Yeah. I think that Grealish, it's encouraging the way he's settled. Obviously, losing his first 2 games wasn't part of the plan. But the fact how he's, I think, kicked on since then is really encouraging. And I think he's going to be a really valuable addition to City. The biggest surprise for me for City, as far as the window as it progressed, but also the in terms of deadline day, was that we didn't see any big name departures. I mean, they talked about Bernardo Silva potentially leaving. Yeah. Even Mahrez had been mooted for the exit door. And I think that the fact that Bernardo Silva stayed, despite reportedly being unhappy, was a bit of a surprise. But I tell you what, they've got some incredible options there.
I think so, and it's good. It's quite, as I said, for Tuchel, it's going to be a headache that's welcome. And Pep is already used to this, at the caliber of players that he has at his disposal to move around and to get them in that right playing style. But there's one position that I feel like they didn't address. A lot of people were talking about this conversation with Harry Kane perhaps joining them, but they still didn't do nothing in terms of that striker role. Would that be the Achilles heel that might just hold City back to get that title again?
There are 2 ways of looking at this. I think, obviously, on one hand, they won the league last season with Aguero rarely featuring. So it's not exactly a problem position because it didn't cost them last season, ultimately, in the league at least. Then they also kind of encouragingly, you look at how Gabriel Jesus has started this season, you look at how Ferran Torres has started this season, and you suspect that those 2, with the kind of support they're going to get, there's going to be goals there. You imagine Sterling will chip in, Gundogan will chip in. I mean, there's going to be goals in that team. However, when it comes to those really big games, when it comes to Champions League final and your plan A is not working, it's pretty useful to have a plan B. And you just wonder whether even moving for someone like there's a reason why City moved for Ronaldo, right? There's a reason why they were reportedly into it. It's because they want something who can represent that kind of guarantee in the final third, and that's maybe something they're lacking.
And I think it's a team that have managed to address that striker issue. I mean, thinking about the chances that they created last year and also winning the Champions League trophy is Chelsea, and the return of Romelu Lukaku. So far, so good. I feel like for Tuchel's men, I think we can't really look too much into the Liverpool result due to the fact that they were down to 10 men. But how good has Lukaku been, since leaving Manchester United and going to the Serie A and doing this thing, and now perhaps coming back to the Premier League to show his quality and the caliber that he can play at?
In terms of the clubs who've had the best window, I think you'd maybe look at Leicester on one hand, but I think Chelsea for me. Yeah. I mean, signing Lukaku, it's such a surefire winner. It's such a guarantee. He's both established, but he's also got a point to prove. Like, he knows the club, but he's also, this is a slightly different environment. New coach, new players. Yeah. The guy's in his prime, built for the Premier League. Already looks like he's very well settled. And as a fan of one of Chelsea's rivals, it's a bit worrying the fact that they've got such a quality option up front. I'd also, like I said, want to give a shout out to Leicester. I think Patson Daka and Lookman are two really attacking options in the final third for a team who had some pretty good options anyway. I think also Boubakary Soumaré in midfield, signed from French Champions League. That transfer has just gone under the radar, but for me, that's a fantastic deal. Like, you're bringing in a French champion, you're bringing in a guy who's been dominating Liga midfield the last year or two, and then also Vestergaard to cover in defence. So there's some really quality options for Leicester as they look to break into the Champions League.
You know what, I think you're right. A lot of people are not even having the conversation about Leicester. If we go back to last season, they were in those spots of the top four. Yes, it happens every single year. They get so close, and then all of a sudden, those last few games, things just don't go to plan, and then some injuries happen. But the one thing I've noticed when it comes to transfers, Leicester's know how to eye their man and get the perfect individual to play within that Brendan Rodgers structure. I mean, you look at the likes of Wesley Fofana, unfortunately he got injured, but when he came in, he also just fit in like a glove in that Leicester City team, and a lot of people were so amazed and shocked. And I have to agree, getting in like someone like Daka into that mix is really incredible. I mean, when I look at his numbers, he's got 34 and 42. That's incredible. That's incredible numbers.
Mitch, we've got a question in here from Mina. She asks, this is one for you. Mitch, Real Madrid were linked with Mbappe on the deadline day, 220 million euros. Didn't go through. How disappointed are you?
I think, look, I feel very heartbroken because I was one of those Real Madrid fans that went out and tweeted, the Mbappe deal is done. I was falling for so many clickbait articles. And I think, the intention is there. I think as a player, when you can see the intent from your club or from a club that wants you so much, I mean, to put up 200 million euros shows that they want you there. And obviously PSG saying, we'll try to give you something better. So I think for me, the intent of us showing that Mbappe that we want him there, we see him as a Madrid star. Also, he's spoken in the past about how he would like to play at Real Madrid. Just shows that maybe next season we might get him on a free, and everyone might forget about the crazy bit that we put in.
That's the question, though. If you can get him on a free in 12 months' time, why on earth are they willing to blow 220 million euros on trying to get him now? I mean, is he worth that just for one season?
I think it just goes back to the intent to show PSG that we're serious. Because I feel like when you look at PSG right now, you have that Galactico feel of the front three of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. Now, it might just create things to be a little bit more comfortable for Kylian to be a part of that team, and they see, a future for that Galactico PSG side. So I feel like for Real Madrid, we needed to show our intention, even though there was 1 year left of the contract. If we were so relaxed and just waited for things to happen, maybe PSG might have got ahead of us, and he would have thought that maybe these guys aren't really serious or don't want us here and combine into the PSG project. But again, we're going to have to wait for January to see if there is a pre-transfer contract that is drawn up for Kylian to join Real Madrid. But that would have been incredible seeing him in Real.
We've got another question here from Sagan. We can maybe both have a go at answering this one. It's a very simple one. He just says, what are Arsenal doing?
I think for me, just out of respect for Arsenal fans, I feel like they need a restructuring. Not too much, but I feel like they need a deep restructuring of let's take a moment, let's step away and see what are we doing wrong. Because right now, you look at the team, look at the signings they made of Lukonga. I rate Lukonga highly. I think Ben White is solid. I think, and plus you still have the mixture of Aubameyang and Lacazette, who are talented players. I think they do need a little bit of experience in terms of the manager position, taking nothing away from what Arteta has done with winning the FA Cup. But I feel like, I mean, a lot of Arsenal fans are speaking of Antonio Conte, who is a serial winner. And sometimes you need that serial winner that has seen it, that has done it all, just to come back, shut up shop. You know, he plays with that back five, to shut up shop and then to work on the other pieces in terms of playing a little bit more attacking football and getting the goals, but making sure that you're not conceding it. I feel like they're struggling on that end just a little too much. How about you?
Well, I mean, the bad news for Mikel Arteta, if what you're saying is that the main error they've made in the transfer window is not sacking their manager, it's that the managers don't have to be sacked during the transfer window. He can be sacked at any time. So they could still pull the trigger in a week, in 3 weeks. They don't have to wait till January. That move can be made any time. I think you saying that Arsenal need a bit of a restructuring, it's a bit of an understatement. I think they need a bit of a rebuild from the foundations to the chimney top, to be honest. It all needs to be torn up and go. I'm not convinced that they got closer to where they need to be in this transfer window. I mean, they signed Aaron Ramsdale. I don't know if he's a very good goalkeeper when it comes to keeping out goals, but I know he's very good at getting relegated because he did it with Bournemouth, he did it with Sheffield United.
And that's true. That is true.
He's joining a club in 19th place, so Arsenal know that they're signing someone who's probably up for a relegation dogfight. And but I'm not so convinced about this right back they've signed, Tomiyasu from Bologna. If you look, try and find his kind of official photo with Arsenal where he signs, he looks very nervous. He looks very, very nervous. Like, I'm just not sure he's ready for the relegation 6 pointers that are surely going to come Arsenal's way.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I feel like there's also a lot of speculation if he is a right back or is he a centre back. So already with that confusion when it comes to a new signing, I feel like at the ground there's going to be a lot of eyes looking at you sideways, looking at Maitland-Niles, who came out on Instagram saying he just wants to go to a place where he can play football. It's just one of those things. Like the players are unhappy, and it looks like the dressing room is going.
He looks very slim. He looks quite frail, and I'm just worried that they've already got Pablo Mari, who's quite I'd say quite centre back. I'm not sure another one was a very good idea. I would have probably gone the opposite direction with that, but you never know. I mean, Arteta might know what he's doing. There's quite a small chance, but you never know.
Yeah, that's true. I think when you look at the numbers, Arsenal has been that club that has spent the most, which is quite scary. But you know what, Ed? I wanted to also jump into an individual that I feel like a lot of people are not talking about. And I feel like it's that Danny Ings transfer is something that has been so incredible. I feel like Villa did some great business in getting him in. Also, another transfer that I also didn't see coming. How about you?
Yeah, I think there's around 25 million, which is an absolutely fantastic fee for a player who is kind of going to guarantee you goals in the Premier League. The only questions about him are his fitness record, because he has missed a lot of games through injury. But it's a fantastic signing. And I look at Everton also signing Rondon as backup to Calvert-Lewin. And, I worry about my club, Tottenham, and why they didn't invest in a backup striker who could have offered cover for Harry Kane. Like Rondon is going to be there if Calvert-Lewin needs a day off, needs 20-minute rest, it gets an injury. But Tottenham, it's great they've kept Kane, but you just wonder where the cover would be should something befall him, which has happened in the past. And a guy like Ings would have been a fantastic backup option for Kane.
And I think I was having a conversation about this. Even if they went for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think he would have fit perfectly into that Spurs mold, because I think he has some Kane-esque, qualities in him as well. Yes, they have their differences, but you can see that he could have potentially been a player that could have fit into that Spurs side, and maybe helped Kane in terms of the workload that he has to share throughout the season.
I think if Kane had gone, I think then Calvert-Lewin could have been targeted as the replacement. I don't think for him he would have come up necessarily to Tottenham and to have been back up to Kane, where you know that Harry Kane is going to be a starter. I think you need someone at a different stage of their trajectory, at a different stage of their career, for that kind of supporting role. And I think, listen, Everton are going to be stronger because of the fact they've got Rondon as backup. Villa are going to be stronger, the fact that Ings and Ollie Watkins as options. And I look at Tottenham and there isn't that same depth up front, unfortunately. And you just wonder why that kind of deal didn't go through.
And I think a team that, we haven't dived into just a little bit, and I think it's time to transition to that, because for me, they've won the transfer window, and that is PSG, bringing in Hakimi, bringing in Donnarumma, Sergio Ramos, Gini Wijnaldum, and of course, one of the greatest players to ever play this game, Lionel Messi. How is this going to work, Ed?
Well, I think it's going to work very well, to be honest. I think looking at Hakimi, obviously there's our African in PSG in terms of the transfer window. I think of all the deals that have taken place from an African point of view in this window, Hakimi is the biggest. Hakimi is the one that has the potential to be the longest lasting, because I think he is now part of a team that is going to win major honours, that is going to be competing at the business end of the Champions League. I think some people would say he's already the best right back in Europe. If they're not saying that now, they probably will be saying it in a year or two. I think him and Trent Alexander-Arnold, even in the last 18 months, people have already kind of been pinning up those two as the top two right backs in Africa. And I think that Hakimi is going to be part of a really successful PSG team. They've bought big, they've bought experience, they've also bought players in their prime. Wijnaldum, he comes with title-winning experience, but he's also got his best years ahead of them. Donnarumma is a great acquisition, and Hakimi is a brilliant signing. It's a little bit sad that we're talking about what the future holds for Hakimi when Serge Aurier has just been booted out of the door at Tottenham. You kind of one is definitely Africa's right back on the rise, and the other is definitely Africa's right back on the slide, unfortunately. And it used to be Aurier who, of course, was bombing down the right flank at PSG, but now he's fallen very far from that.
I think when we do touch on Achraf Hakimi, again, a Real Madrid boy, he was there in academy all the way up. And when we decided to let him go, I was very heartbroken, because that was the same season where Danny Carvajal got injured. Therefore, Lucas Vazquez had to play right back. And I was like, we just let go of such a talented right back. And already in his debut at PSG, he's already scored a goal. Just on the weekend, he assisted Mbappe with such an incredible pass. He looks like he could be, that it guy in terms of how PSG plays. And I have a feeling that he's definitely secured that right side. I think a player that I also want to jump into, who is going on loan to Napoli, is, of course, Zambo Anguissa, the Cameroonian, who had some interest from Everton as well as Valencia. But now, looking at his numbers, it looks good, because, he got some 3 assists when he was still playing at Fulham. And I think he could be that player that, as we said, mentioning players that's on the rise for the African continent. I think he showed up when he was at Fulham and he just did his thing. So being 25, I think the sky is quite the limit for him.
Yeah, well, he was linked to your beloved Real Madrid a year ago following his successful loan at Villarreal. I think he was always going to be too good for the Championship. He was not going to stick around at Fulham in the second tier. And he's got a chance now to go to a new league, a new country. Obviously, there'll be a little bit of an adaptation period at Napoli, but he's proven in Spain that he can ultimately adapt pretty quickly to playing in different environments. And I think he'll really be a big hit in Italian football. I think he has the potential, along with like Frank Kessie, to be the outstanding central midfielder. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's a great move for all parties, apart from obviously Fulham, who I'm sure would have loved to have, if he was hungry, if he was committed, would have loved to have still had him around for their battle to return to the Premier League. But he's certainly one to watch this season. Great to see more African interest at Napoli, who obviously also have Victor Osimhen, and they're really fun to watch. In terms of deadline day moves in Africa, I also want to talk about Abdullah Sima. I don't know if you know too much about him. He's a Senegal wonder kid, played for Slavia Prague in the Czech League. He's already impressed in the Europa League. And he's been linked with some of Europe's biggest clubs, including Manchester United in recent months. But he actually went to Brighton on deadline day in a 6.7 million deal. But went a little bit under the radar. He's been moved out. He's been moved out on loan to Stoke City, which is going to be a real culture clash for him. But he's someone, maybe not in the next few months, but in time, I think he's going to be someone who proves to be a really astute acquisition, one of the really astute acquisitions of this window.
I think you're right on that one. With 16 goals in 33 games, also he's 6'2". He can definitely be, and he's quite quick as well.
I'm doing your research.
Of course, I've been doing my research. I think also I was watching a couple of clips as well, and there was just because when you look at the big man, you look at the taller guys. There's always a lack of pace, and I think with him, he holds the ball up really, really well, and also he gets in the box so quickly. So when they're pinging the crosses in, and I think he's joining such an elite, big group of big men. So when it comes to set pieces, I think Brighton is definitely going to be quite hard to beat in there because you've got the likes of Lewis Dunk, you've got Dan Burn as well, which are tall, big guys. So I think when it comes to that, they're definitely going to be bullying quite a few teams, even the top six as well.
Yeah, I fear from a little bit moving to Stoke because Stoke and the Championship is the ultimate kind of tough destination. I mean, you'd rather be with them. Yeah, but you do have to play at the Panica Stadium every other game, which will be a little bit daunting. And Championship defence centre backs, they will initially at least relish the prospect, I think, of welcoming him to English football. It's just a case of whether he can rise above that and prove his quality. But that'll be an interesting one to watch because new arrivals in the Championship, it's often sink or swim, I would say.
Look, I guess he's playing for Stoke, so on the cold, wet, rainy nights at Stoke, he's going to be part of the home crowd. So I think that will definitely help. I think when we transition into some of the top Nigerian... As we transition into some of the top Nigerian transfers that happened this past transfer window, there's one I want to jump into, and that's Frank Onyega, who joined Brighton from Midtjylland as well, which has been incredible. I think when you look at Brighton, it's only been 3 games that they're mid-table right now with the win against Arsenal and coming up with 2 draws. I think they could keep the momentum with Frank in there as well. I have a feeling.
Yeah, he's obviously got experience in the Champions League, so he's played against some of Europe's best midfielders. But I do question making the step over from Danish football to the Premier League. That is a really big leap, and we've often seen this thing I've written about quite a lot. Is we see central midfielders who have excelled in other divisions, but they've come to the Premier League, and you find yourself at a team who aren't seeing much of the ball, who aren't getting much possession, who are on the back foot. Suddenly you can struggle to impose yourself and assert yourself. But I don't think we'll have that problem with Onyeka because he's a player who excels when it comes to winning back the ball, retrieving the ball, and I think he will serve his new employers well. Will it be enough to keep Brentford up? I'm optimistic, but it's going to be a tough season for him and them, no doubt about that.
And I think, look, if you're going to learn Premier League in a promoted side, I think that's the best place to be at so you can get used to that level. And if, look, Brighton stays up, it's good on him. If they do go down, you go down with a wall of knowledge on how the Premier League set up. Plus, it's also one of the biggest stages in the world. So you get to show off your talents as well. I think for him, it's definitely a win-win situation to be part of a side, which a lot of people are not expecting too much from, but you can definitely be the shining light in that.
Yeah, it's also, I think, great for the Super Eagles because Nigeria, obviously not at the moment in this international break where players from UK are banned for going for red list countries. It's a disaster. But long-term, having another Super Eagles player who's starting week in, week out at a Premier League club is testing himself against the absolute cream of the crop. I think that's only going to serve the Super Eagles well. And this midfield of Ndidi, Onyeka, you throw in guys like Iwobi, guys like Tebo, who's at Watford, that's going to be like that has the potential to be a really quality midfield. And I'm hoping, like you say, he'll be much stronger for this experience of a season in the Premier League. Or maybe more.
And I think sticking with the Super Eagles, one of my favorite players, Ahmed Musa, he also made the move this past transfer window as he joined the Turkish side, Fatih Karumurak. Not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm pretty close. I think for me, he caught my eye when he was at Leicester. I loved it. I used to put him in my fantasy team because he was just so good, in terms of the way he would run off the ball and just the positioning on the field. I mean, it's mentioned before in articles where he said that he wants to play, at a higher level of football. And I think in considerations with, AFCON around the corner, he definitely would like to put up his hand for contention to be part of that team.
I don't know how many fantasy Premier League points you get for good runs off the ball. Maybe we're near the top of the FPL table, to be honest. But yeah, he had some bright moments in Russia. I don't think he'll remember his time in England that well. But he moves to Turkey after returning to Nigerian football. And while that was a nice kind of excursion, a nice chapter in his career, I felt it was premature for him to have dropped down to that level. And so I'm excited to see him return to Europe, even though I'd hoped we'd maybe see him in France or Portugal rather than Turkey. But still, they've got an exciting project going on, and it's good to see him back testing himself at a higher level. And injuries permitting, I think he'll definitely be with Nigeria, leading them out at the Nations Cup. But there is a lot of competition in those wing areas. And one of the players who I'd love to see in the squad to make his mark with the Super Eagles is Ademola Lookman. I mentioned him earlier. He's been in English with Everton, with Fulham. Now he returns with Leicester City on loan from Leipzig. And I really hope this is the season where Lookman finally explodes. Not literally, but where his talent really is shown in full force in the Premier League. Because we've seen glimpses, but I think this could be the year we really see it happen.
And I think as well, it goes back to that whole conversation of once experiencing the Premier League and seeing the level that all the clubs at and all the players are at, you come back with a certain hunger. And I hope that his bounce back is very, very good, because I also think he's quite a talented young player. And I've also seen in his one-on-one take-ons just how quick he is on the wing as well. There's a level of, I'm going to say this is it might be a crazy take, but he reminds me of a little bit of Raheem Sterling in a sense of his pace, and also just his movement off the ball as well. So I'm definitely excited to see if he can put up his hands for the Super Eagles and also join the Nigerian team.
What I'm excited about is seeing what Brendan Rodgers can get out of him, because already the fact he's been kind of spotted by Rodgers, has been identified as a talent he wants to work with, that to me is already a massive thing, because Rodgers is, like you mentioned with Wesley Fofana before, he's got a really good track record for picking up players at a certain level and quite quickly getting them to another level. So I think that both the fact that he's been identified by Rodgers and the fact that he'll now get the chance to work with him, Nigeria fans should be very excited about that.
And I think also another player that Nigerian fans should be excited is, of course, Tayola Oyini, who was a Liverpool player. Unfortunately, he didn't get to play a single game due to permit issues, so he's been out on loan a couple of times. But I think he finally cemented himself a permanent stay at Union Berlin. And look, the numbers are okay with 5 goals in 22 games. But I think regular football and also just having a permanent place to be at, I think would also just help him ease in a little bit. Union Berlin, of course, being up Metz to that transfer. But I'm just excited for the young player. A little bit of stability goes a long way.
Yeah, just to kind of close off, there are 2 strikers, Nigerian strikers I want to talk about. And the first one is Awoniyi, and I agree with pretty much everything you've said. I think it was a shame he never got to make it mark at Liverpool, although I think it was inevitable, really. I don't think he's shown that quality. But I think kind of going back to Union Berlin, where he was on loan last season, the familiarity is helping him. It's not another. On one hand, it is a fresh start, but on one hand, it's not a fresh start. It's kind of continuity from last season, and he's already scored. I mean, yeah, his numbers last season weren't great, 5 goals, but he already has, I think, 5 this season already, including goals in the Europa League, 4 or 5. So he's really hit the ground running. Hopefully, he'll be confident now. He'll be enjoying his football, and he's someone who hopefully could force his way back into international reckoning. The other player, the final player I want to talk about, Nigeria striker, and I'm not happy about this one, I'm afraid, Mitch. So get prepared for a bit of a grumble. It's Simi Nwankwo. Simi Nwankwo, towering centre forward, got it all. Scored 20 goals last season for Crotone in the Italian top flight. They were relegated, they were hopeless, but yet he still scored 20 goals. And I was confident this guy would move on to great things. He would move on to mid-table Premier League. He would move on to maybe Roma will link to him. Heavyweights in France will link to him. I thought, right, he's done enough now to get a big move. And instead, he's moved to Salerno, newly promoted Salernitana. And I mean, he must love Italy. He must love Italian relegation battles, because why is he not? He's such a tall guy. Why was he not aiming a bit higher? Why was he aiming for another relegation dogfight? I'm so underwhelmed by that transfer. Great player. I'm sure he'll score goals, but why wasn't he aiming a bit high? You know.
I think maybe I don't think it's the relegation aspect. I think it's, maybe you, the guy in that team, looking at your numbers, you are the one that's going to help us, stay up. I think also that credit helps a long way in terms of when the bigger clubs come in. You look at Jack Grealish, for example, and what he did when Villa looked so grim, and all of a sudden he turned it on, and also helping them up into promotion. Maybe it could be that. I don't know. I'm just trying to build the case here.
Imagine if Grealish had left Villa to go to like Norwich. Then everyone that's what this is like. Simi was like the Grealish he was like the Grealish of Crotone, and he moved to Salerno rather than aiming for a Man City. Why? I can't understand it. I wish can he be our next guest? Because I'd love to ask him a few questions about his career planning.
Listen, we'll talk to the producers. We'll make a plan. We can have a sit down and in-depth conversation between you two. I'll definitely be watching that.
I think just to close off, it would be good to have maybe it's something we've talked about, maybe some we haven't, but the one outstanding deal of the transfer window, which is the one that's got you most excited. Just a quick name and explanation.
I think for me, the most oh man, this is so hard. I want to say, because we've already seen him play, but I feel like he might crack on a little bit more, and that's obviously Jack Grealish. I think with just the way Pep plays, I think what's going to add to his game and just the style and playing with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan, I think will just add to his game a little bit more, and he might just turn up and be, I would say the Hazard, because of just where he plays the Premier League.
Glad to hear it. For me, it's got to be Harry Kane not signing for Man City, sticking at top. What a fantastic move. Come on, we've talked a lot about the deals that did go through. I think it's worth ending.
But the deals that didn't go through.
The deal that didn't go through, Harry Kane. That letter, the best. I mean, there have been a lot of contracts that have been written, a lot of contracts that have been signed. But that letter he wrote to the Spurs fans saying today, I think that's the best bit of business of the whole window, to be honest.
And I think Arsenal would say Granit Xhaka not going to Roma and giving him an extension would be the perfect present that they needed. Look, that's how we end things.
The worst deal of the window, to be honest.
That's how we end things on AFHQ. What did you think of the transfer window? Let us know on our socials as well. And also keep liking, keep following. I've been Mitch Matyana. That's been A-Dove, and thanks for watching.